Have you ever noticed that heavy feeling in your legs at the end of the day? That swelling around your ankles that seems to appear out of nowhere? That dull ache that makes it hard to fall asleep at night, even when you haven't done anything particularly strenuous? Most people write it off as just getting older. They assume that after 60, legs are supposed to feel this way: heavy, swollen, tired. And they adapt their lives around it, quietly accepting a level of discomfort that was never inevitable, not realizing that their body is actually sending them a very specific signal. A signal that something is happening inside their veins that deserves attention before it becomes something far more serious. What I'm about to share with you today changes that story completely. Because that heaviness, that swelling, that persistent discomfort in your legs is not something you simply have to accept as part of aging. And there is a vitamin, one that most people have never connected to vein health, that plays an extraordinary role in cleaning and protecting the venous system in your legs. A vitamin that research shows can reduce inflammation, improve circulation, and protect your vein walls from a silent damage that accumulates quietly over decades. Stay with me until the end, because beyond revealing which vitamin this is and exactly how it works inside your body, I'm going to walk you through the warning signs your body gives when your leg veins are struggling, the nutrients that work in powerful synergy to protect them, and a practical daily plan you can start implementing today. I'm Dr. Nova Blake, and I've been practicing medicine for over 30 years. In that time, one of the most common and most overlooked problems I've seen in my patients over 60 is exactly this: circulatory issues in the legs that were quietly ignored for years until they became serious. And the tragedy is that in the overwhelming majority of cases, the damage was entirely preventable. The body had been giving signals for years. Nobody was listening. That's why I'm here today. Not to alarm you, but to give you the information that can genuinely change the course of your vascular health. Before we go further, I want to ask you something directly. Do you experience heaviness or swelling in your legs regularly? Do your ankles look puffy by the time evening comes around? Leave a yes or no in the comments below. I genuinely want to understand how many people watching right now are dealing with this on a daily basis. To really understand what this vitamin does and why it matters so much, I first need to explain what actually happens to your leg veins as the years go by. Because once you understand the mechanism, everything else will make perfect sense. Think about your circulatory system as having two main highways. The arteries carry blood away from the heart and out to every corner of the body. The veins bring that blood back. Now, the arteries have a significant advantage. The heart's pumping pressure is right behind them, pushing the blood forward. But your leg veins face a completely different challenge. They have to push blood upward against the full force of gravity, all the way from your feet back up to your heart. Every single minute of every single day. To accomplish this, your veins are equipped with a remarkably intelligent system of one-way valves. Tiny flaps built into the inner walls of the veins that open to allow blood to move upward toward the heart, and then snap shut immediately to prevent it from falling back down. When these valves are healthy and functioning well, the whole system runs efficiently and silently. You don't notice it. You don't feel it. The blood moves up, the heart receives it, and life goes on. The trouble begins when those valves start to weaken, and they will weaken in almost everyone if the right conditions are allowed to develop over time. Age itself progressively reduces the elasticity and structural integrity of vein walls. Long periods of sitting or standing without movement allow blood to pool and stagnate in the lower legs. Carrying extra weight increases the downward pressure on the entire venous system, forcing the valves to work harder than they were designed to. And perhaps most insidiously, chronic low-grade inflammation, which operates silently beneath the surface in the body after 60, gradually degrades the delicate inner lining of your veins, compromising the very structures that keep your circulation healthy. When the valves begin to fail, blood starts to leak backward and pool. The veins become stretched and distended, filled with blood that isn't circulating the way it should. And this is the direct physical cause of all those familiar symptoms. The heaviness, the visible swelling, the tired, aching legs, the varicose veins that begin to show through the skin. In more advanced cases, blood that sits still in a vein for too long can begin to clot. Physicians call this deep vein thrombosis. And if a clot forms, detaches, and travels through the bloodstream to the lungs, the result is a pulmonary embolism, which is a genuine medical emergency with serious consequences. I'm not sharing this to frighten you. I'm sharing it because I want you to understand the stakes. Leg vein health is not a cosmetic concern. It is not something trivial. It is a direct reflection of your cardiovascular health and your long-term vitality. And protecting those veins while you still can, before significant damage accumulates, is far simpler than treating a serious problem after the fact. Now let's talk about the vitamin at the center of today's conversation. We're talking about vitamin K2, and I want to be clear right from the start. This is not the same as vitamin K1. Most people have heard of vitamin K in the context of blood clotting, and that's vitamin K1. Vitamin K2 is a completely different compound, with a completely different function in the body, one that has only been deeply understood in the last 2 decades of research. Vitamin K2 is what scientists call a calcium regulator. And understanding why calcium regulation matters so much for your veins is the key to understanding this entire conversation. Here's what happens. As we age, calcium that should be building strong bones can begin to drift into places where it absolutely does not belong. And one of the most dangerous places it can accumulate is the walls of your blood vessels and veins. This process has a name: vascular calcification, and it is exactly what transforms previously flexible, responsive blood vessels into stiff, hardened tubes that can no longer adapt naturally to the flow of blood. Picture a brand new garden hose. It bends easily, it expands when the water pressure increases, it flexes and adjusts. Now picture that same hose after 10 years of outdoor weathering. It's cracked, rigid, inflexible. It doesn't give anymore. That's what vascular calcification does to your circulatory system, quietly and without any warning symptoms over the course of years. Vitamin K2 works to stop this process at the biological level. It activates 2 specific proteins that are absolutely critical for keeping your vessel walls clean and flexible. The first is called matrix GLA protein, or MGP. This protein acts like a molecular cleanup crew, actively removing calcium deposits from the walls of blood vessels and veins, preventing that dangerous hardening before it takes hold. The second protein is osteocalcin, which takes that mobilized calcium and redirects it precisely where it belongs, into your bones, making them denser and stronger. This is the elegant simplicity of what vitamin K2 does. It doesn't just prevent something bad, it actively reverses the process and creates something good at the same time. Less calcium in your vessel walls means more calcium in your bones. Your veins become more flexible, your bones become stronger, both at once. And the research supporting this is substantial. A landmark study published in the Journal of Nutrition followed more than 4,800 people over a 10-year period and concluded that those with the highest dietary intake of vitamin K2 had a significantly lower risk of coronary artery calcification and a meaningfully reduced risk of dying from cardiovascular disease. But the benefits go further than just calcium management. Vitamin K2 also exerts a direct protective effect on vein walls by reducing chronic vascular inflammation. Remember, chronic inflammation is one of the primary mechanisms behind the weakening of vein valves and vein walls. Vitamin K2 addresses this problem directly. Researchers at Maastricht University in the Netherlands, one of the most respected centers for vitamin K2 research in the entire world, conducted a controlled clinical trial demonstrating that regular supplementation with vitamin K2 in the MK7 form significantly reduced markers of vascular inflammation and produced measurable improvements in arterial flexibility in patients over 55 years of age. Arterial and venous flexibility. This is not a minor detail. This means blood vessels that respond dynamically to the demands of circulation. Vessels that work cooperatively with the heart instead of fighting against it. Vessels that allow blood to move efficiently rather than pooling and stagnating. I want to tell you about Margaret, one of my patients, 67 years old. She came to see me exhausted and frustrated. Her legs felt like they were filled with concrete by mid-afternoon. Her ankles were visibly swollen by the time she got home from her part-time job. She had varicose veins on both legs that had been gradually worsening for years. And every night, the aching in her legs was significant enough to interrupt her sleep, sometimes waking her up 2 or 3 times a night. Her examination confirmed moderate chronic venous insufficiency. Her vein valves were not functioning properly, and venous return in her lower legs was significantly compromised. I put together a comprehensive protocol for her that included movement recommendations, dietary adjustments, and specifically vitamin K2 supplementation in the MK7 form at 180 micrograms daily, always taken with her evening meal. Within 6 weeks, she told me the swelling in her ankles had reduced noticeably. She could see a difference. Within 4 months, the nighttime pain that had been disrupting her sleep had almost completely resolved. She was sleeping through the night again for the first time in years. When she came back for her follow-up, she was smiling in a way I hadn't seen from her before. That's not magic. That's not luck. That's the body responding to a nutrient it had been deficient in for years, finally being given what it needed to do the repair work it had been unable to complete. Now I want to tell you about another patient, Robert, 71 years old, a retired teacher from Ohio. Robert had been told by his previous doctor that his leg swelling and the cramping he experienced at night were simply part of getting older. He'd been living with it for 4 years, wearing compression socks daily and elevating his legs every evening just to manage the discomfort. When he came to see me, his blood work revealed something interesting. His vitamin K2 levels were essentially undetectable. He ate almost no fermented foods. His diet was primarily based on processed and packaged foods, and he had been taking a calcium supplement for years without any K2 to direct that calcium properly. We stopped the calcium supplement, started him on K2 as MK7, added magnesium glycinate, and increased his daily movement with a simple walking routine. Within 3 months, Robert told me his legs felt lighter than they had in years. The nighttime cramps had stopped almost entirely. His wife noticed the change before he did. Both Margaret and Robert had one thing in common. They had been managing symptoms for years without ever addressing the underlying nutritional deficiency that was making those symptoms possible in the first place. Now, a practical question. Where does vitamin K2 actually come from, and how do most people get it? The honest answer is that vitamin K2 is genuinely difficult to obtain in meaningful amounts from the modern Western diet. The richest dietary source is a Japanese fermented soybean food called natto, which most Americans have never tried, and which has a flavor profile that many people find challenging. Beyond natto, meaningful amounts of K2 are found in aged cheeses made from the milk of pasture-raised animals, egg yolks from truly pasture-raised hens, chicken liver, and butter from grass-fed cows. The problem is straightforward. The vast majority of animal products in American grocery stores come from animals raised in industrial feeding operations, eating grain-based diets. These animals produce foods with dramatically lower levels of vitamin K2 compared to their pasture-raised counterparts. The eggs, the cheese, the butter that most people eat every day contain only a fraction of the K2 that the same foods would have contained 50 years ago. As a result, subclinical vitamin K2 deficiency is widespread, quiet, and largely undetected, particularly in adults over 60 who may already have reduced capacity to absorb fat-soluble nutrients from food. For supplementation, the form I recommend is vitamin K2 as MK7. A daily dose of 90 to 180 micrograms is the range supported by clinical evidence for cardiovascular and vascular benefits. Two critically important practical notes. First, vitamin K2 is fat-soluble, which means your body can only absorb it properly when fat is present in the same meal. Always take your K2 supplement with food that contains some fat. A meal cooked in olive oil, a piece of cheese, an egg, even a small handful of nuts. Without dietary fat, a significant portion of the supplement will pass through your digestive system without being absorbed at all. Second, if you currently take anticoagulant medications like warfarin or Coumadin, please have a conversation with your prescribing physician before starting any vitamin K supplementation. There is a clinically significant interaction between vitamin K and warfarin that requires monitoring and potentially dose adjustment. This is not a reason to avoid K2 entirely, but it is absolutely a reason to have that conversation with your doctor first. Vitamin K2 is powerful, but it works best as part of a broader nutritional strategy for vein health. There are several other nutrients that act in direct synergy with it, and I want to walk you through the most important ones. Vitamin C is the first. Your vein walls are built largely from collagen, and collagen synthesis depends directly on vitamin C. Without adequate vitamin C, the structural integrity of your vein walls degrades over time. The walls become thinner, weaker, more prone to stretching and losing their shape. Research has consistently found that people with lower circulating levels of vitamin C have higher rates of varicose veins and venous insufficiency. Supplementing with 500 to 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C daily has shown measurable benefits for vascular wall integrity across multiple clinical studies. Magnesium is the second. Vein walls are surrounded by smooth muscle tissue, and magnesium is essential for that muscle to relax and contract properly. When magnesium levels are low, vein walls stay in a state of chronic tension, which impairs the smooth return of blood toward the heart. Magnesium also has well-documented anti-inflammatory effects throughout the cardiovascular system. And it's worth knowing that magnesium deficiency is remarkably common in American adults over 60. Surveys suggest more than half of older adults don't meet the recommended daily intake. Those nighttime leg cramps that wake so many people up at 2 or 3 in the morning. In many cases, they are a direct sign of magnesium insufficiency that is entirely correctable. Rutin is the third, and this one surprises most people because very few have ever heard of it. Rutin is a flavonoid compound found naturally in apple skins, buckwheat, and asparagus. It has a very specific protective action on vein walls. It reduces vascular permeability, meaning it strengthens the walls of small veins and capillaries and actively prevents fluid from leaking out into the surrounding tissue. This fluid leakage is the direct physical mechanism that creates leg swelling. Several pharmaceutical medicines widely prescribed for venous insufficiency in Europe, including diosmin and hesperidin, belong to the same biochemical family as rutin and have strong clinical evidence behind them. Beyond supplementation, the daily habits you maintain have an enormous impact on your vein health over time, and they work hand in hand with everything I've described. Movement is the single most important habit you can build. Your calf muscles function as a mechanical pump for your venous system. Every time you take a step, every time you contract the muscles of your lower leg, that muscular contraction physically squeezes the veins and propels blood upward toward the heart. Doctors call this the calf muscle pump, and it accounts for a substantial portion of the venous return from your legs. When you sit still for hours at a stretch, that pump shuts down. Blood pools. Vein walls come under increasing pressure, and the valves deteriorate faster than they otherwise would. You don't need intense exercise. You don't need a gym. A 20-minute walk each day provides consistent activation of the calf pump. And if you spend long hours at a desk or in front of a screen, setting a simple timer to get up and walk for 5 minutes every hour can make a significant protective difference over the long term. Elevating your legs during rest periods is the second habit. Whenever you're relaxing, lying down or watching television, position your legs above the level of your heart. A pillow under your calves when you sleep. A cushion under your feet on the sofa. This simple positional adjustment uses gravity to assist venous return, relieving pressure on the valves and allowing fluid that has pooled in the tissues to drain back naturally. It costs nothing. It requires no effort. And done consistently, it makes a real difference. Consistent hydration is the third. When the body is even mildly dehydrated, blood becomes thicker and more viscous. Thicker blood moves more slowly through the veins, pools more easily, and carries an elevated risk of clot formation. Drinking water steadily throughout the day, not waiting until you feel thirsty, keeps your blood at the ideal viscosity for healthy circulation. This matters more as we age because the sensation of thirst genuinely diminishes over time, even when hydration needs remain exactly the same. Watching your sodium intake is the fourth. Excess sodium causes the body to retain water in the tissues, and that retained fluid gravitates downward into the legs throughout the day. Simply reducing processed foods, canned goods, deli meats, fast food, and heavily packaged snacks can produce a noticeable reduction in leg swelling within just a few days. You don't need to give up salt entirely. You need to become aware of just how much hidden sodium is in the everyday packaged foods that most people consume without ever reading the label. I want to leave you with something I've carried with me through 30 years of practice. The veins in your legs are structures that work against gravity, silently and without complaint, every single day of your life. They don't ask for recognition. They don't demand attention. They simply keep working, year after year, decade after decade. asking only that you give them the nutritional support and daily habits they need to continue doing their job. The signals they send when something is going wrong, the heavy legs, the swollen ankles, the nighttime aching, the cramps, these are not signs of inevitable decline. They are communications. Messages from a system that has been working under tremendous demands for decades and is now telling you, clearly and specifically, what it needs from you. Vitamin K2 is one important part of that answer. Not a miracle, not a substitute for proper medical care, but a nutrient that your body genuinely requires, that most people are not getting in adequate amounts from their diet, and that has meaningful, research-backed benefits for the long-term health of your vascular system. Combined with vitamin C, magnesium, regular movement, consistent hydration, and mindful eating, it forms a practical, accessible, and well-supported approach to protecting your leg veins that you can begin today. Tell me in the comments, had you ever heard of vitamin K2 before today? Are you already doing anything to support your circulation? I read every comment because every response tells me this conversation is reaching the people who need it. If you know someone who deals with heavy legs, swollen ankles, or varicose veins, please share this video with them. The right information at the right moment can genuinely change the direction of someone's health. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that now and turn on notifications. Every week I bring you content like this about what your body actually needs and how to support it in the most practical ways possible. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.